Good evening, and welcome back to the Poe Museum. In honor of the Poe Museum's centennial this year, a friend from Colorado has given us this mystery donation. What could be inside? A copy of Poe's first book, Tamerlane? The most valuable book in American literature? Poe's mummified brain? We'll find out tonight in the Curator's Crypt. So here we are. Here's our letter from the donor. Here are a few offerings I hope you find of interest. So here's the Partisan Review, a magazine dated December 1949 with an essay here by Alan Tate, who was a poet laureate of the United States in the 1940s, Our Cousin Mr. Poe. So this looks like two copies of the Partisan Review. Oh, this is a nice one, the 1881 edition of The Bells. This was one of Poe's very last poems. This is a beautiful illustrated edition, and one of the illustrators here is Felix O. Darley, who's actually somebody that Poe knew, and Poe liked his work so much that he wanted Darley to be the illustrator for Poe's new magazine, The Stylus. So there's Felix O.C. Darley's name right there. And this has just some wonderful illustration. It goes back pretty much line by line. Maybe a little bit of minor damage down there. Oh, this is an interesting piece here. A Poe pilgrimage around Richmond from 1935. So it's got a list of different Poe sites, like 804 East Clay Street, where Poe had bachelor quarters with Hugh Pleasance, editor of the Richmond Whig in 1848. Well, a lot of these have been demolished. So that one's been demolished. The Monumental Church, Broad near 13th, and Pew 80, Poe sat as a boy, so that's still standing. So this is an interesting little document of the 1930s and Poe sites that they'd identified at that time, and we can compare them with what's actually still there. And this is Poe to the Rescue. It's a poem by Joseph Auslander from page 23 of an unknown periodical. This one right here, March 18th, 1935, landmark of Poe's Helen will pass with razing of old Adam Craig House. That's the Adam Craig House just around the corner from the Poe Museum, is threatened with demolition in the 1930s. It's the birthplace of Poe's first great love, Jane Stith Craig Stannard, the woman he devoted the poem To Helen to. So at the time of the writing of this article, they thought it was about to be demolished, but the good news is it's still standing. Oh, here's The Buried Treasury of Edgar Allan Poe. Another one. It's an unidentified publication. It's clipping. And this is about William Kester, who was a major Poe collector. A lot of his things are now at the Harry Ransom Center at UT Austin. And this is Library to Exhibit Early Poe Portraits. So this is November 9th, 1941, Baltimore, Sunday morning. So this refers to the Gabriel Harrison portrait of Poe that's going to be on display at the Enoch Pratt Free Library. And that portrait is there, and we've got another Gabriel Harrison portrait of Poe that just came here to the Poe Museum. This is The Last Stitch. It refers to C. Alphonso Smith, the Edgar Allan Poe Professor of Literature at the University of Virginia. The Bookman's Journal from June 1923. And that's bound in there with Americana Illustrated. So a couple different 1920s sources of information about Poe, but here's where we get to the good stuff. This is a copy of the September 1835 issue of the Southern Literary Messenger in the original covers. Oftentimes you see these bound into volumes. They'll rip the cover off and just bind them all up together, a year's worth of these magazines. But this is original covers. You can still see the edge there. And it's signed up top, Mrs. James B. Thornton, Saco, Maine. Well, that's a poet. She wrote under the pen name Eliza of Saco, and a lot of her poetry appeared in the Southern Literary Messenger in different months. So this is signed by one of the contributors to this magazine. And this particular issue, September 1835, usually Poe had one of his stories in each month. This time he's got 3 stories and a poem in here. And if we look really closely, which you can't see very well from there, he's got Loss of Breath right there in the table of contents, King Pest the First, and Shadow, a Fable, all by Edgar A. Poe. And you'll notice that 2 of them are comedies. Only one of them's a horror story. And the other one is over here. It's called Lines Written in an Album, also known as To Eliza. And then after he rededicated it to Francis Osgood, it was later known as To Francis. But that's the first printing right there. So this is a valuable little document here. So we're glad that he was able to donate that to us. And then here's the last one, Burton's Gentleman's Magazine. This is June 1839. And original covers, we don't have a copy of this in the original covers. We have them in bound volumes. So this is much as it would have appeared in Poe's time. If Poe owned a copy, if Poe were handing someone a copy, this is what it would look like in the original covers. And it does have a few contributions in it that are said to be by Poe, but they're not signed. But in May, the middle of May, the previous month before this came out, Poe was taken on as a co-editor of the magazine, so he started contributing right about this time. And one of the articles in here that was attributed to him was Manly Pastimes in Field Sports, and Poe probably didn't write it, but on the back, right there on the back cover, the owner of this is Burton's Gentleman's Magazine, William E. Burton, editor and proprietor, has much pleasure in stating that he has made arrangements with Edgar A. Poe, Esquire, late editor of the Southern Literary Messenger, to devote his abilities and experience to a portion of the editorial duties of the Gentleman's Magazine. So this is the issue that announces that Poe is taking on his second real job in journalism, his second editorial position. And while he's working at Burton's Gentleman's Magazine, he's going to publish William Wilson and The Fall of the House of Usher and really kickstart his career as a fiction writer. So these 2 pieces are really just great magazines, great documents of Poe's career, and a nice little surprise to come out of our Poe mystery box. So thanks to our Poe mystery donor from Colorado for sending these things. And if you'd like to donate any of your Poe treasures to the museum, just send them our way and we'll check them out. And if you don't have any Poe treasures but still like to contribute, why not become a patron by visiting us at patreon.com/PoeMuseum, where you can see videos just like this a week before everyone else. But to thank you for joining us today, I'd like to leave you with more gratuitous footage of Edgar, the Poe Museum cat, doing cat stuff.